I'll never forget the night that changed everything for me. It started out like any other evening, nervous, excited, hopeful. I was about to meet my boyfriend's family for the first time. I had no idea that by the end of the night, I'd be the one holding all the cards. But let me start at the beginning, because you need to know how it all unfolded. How one man's arrogance led to his own downfall. And how I, the girl he tried to humiliate, ended up exposing the truth he'd hidden for years. My name is Mia. I grew up in a small town, raised by a single mom who worked 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. I never had much, but I learned early on that kindness and honesty matter more than money. When I met Ethan, my boyfriend, I thought I'd finally found someone who saw me for who I really was. He was sweet, funny, and always made me feel special. But there was one thing he never talked much about: his family, especially his father. Ethan's dad, Mr. Carter, was a big name in our city. He owned several businesses, donated to charities, and was always in the news for some new achievement. People called him a pillar of the community. But Ethan always seemed tense when his father came up. He'd just say, "He's complicated. You'll see." So when Ethan invited me to dinner at his family's house, I was nervous. I wanted to make a good impression. I wore my nicest dress, practiced my manners, and even brought a homemade pie. I had no idea what was waiting for me behind those fancy doors. The Carter house was everything I'd imagined. Huge, spotless, filled with expensive art and the smell of fresh flowers. Ethan's mom greeted me with a polite smile, but it was clear she was sizing me up. His little sister barely looked up from her phone. And then there was Mr. Carter. He walked in, tall and confident, with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He shook my hand, but his grip was cold. "Welcome, Mia," he said, looking me up and down. "I've heard things." I tried to laugh it off, but my hands were shaking. We sat down to dinner, and the conversation started out normal enough: school, work, hobbies. But every time I spoke, Mr. Carter would interrupt or make a snide comment. He asked about my family, my job, my plans for the future. No matter what I said, he found a way to twist it. "So, Mia, what do your parents do?" "My mum's a nurse, my dad. He's not around." He raised an eyebrow. "Ah, I see. And you work at a coffee shop, right?" I nodded, feeling my cheeks burn. He smiled, but it was more like a smirk. Ambitious. Ethan squeezed my hand under the table, but I could feel the tension building. I tried to stay calm, but I could tell Mr. Carter was just getting started. It happened so fast, I almost didn't believe it. We were talking about college, how I was taking night classes, saving up, trying to make something of myself. Mr. Carter leaned back in his chair, swirling his wine. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "You know, Ethan, when you bring someone home, I expect a certain standard, not someone off the street." The room went silent. I felt like I'd been slapped. His words echoed in my head. Off the street. I looked at Ethan, hoping he'd say something, but he just stared at his plate. Mr. Carter kept going. "I mean, really, Mia, you seem nice enough, but this family has a reputation to uphold. We can't just let anyone in." I wanted to cry, to run out of the room, but something inside me snapped. I realized in that moment that this man didn't care about me. He didn't care about anyone but himself. And I wasn't going to let him get away with it. I excused myself and went to the bathroom, my hands shaking. I stared at my reflection, trying to hold back tears. But then I remembered something Ethan had told me, months ago. A secret about his father. A secret that could change everything. Ethan once mentioned late at night that his father wasn't as perfect as everyone thought. He'd hinted at shady business deals, people getting hurt, money disappearing. At the time, I thought he was just venting. But now I wondered if there was more to the story. I took a deep breath and went back to the table. Mr. Carter was laughing, telling a story about one of his business trips. I sat down, smiled, and waited. If he wanted to play games, I could play too. That night after dinner, Ethan walked me to my car. He apologized over and over, but I could see the fear in his eyes. "He's always like this," he whispered. "I'm sorry, I should have warned you." I hugged him, but my mind was racing. I needed to know the truth about Mr. Carter. If he was willing to humiliate me in front of his own family, what else was he hiding? I spent the next few days doing research. I talked to people who worked for Mr. Carter, read old news articles, and even checked public records. The more I dug, the more I found. Strange payments, lawsuits that disappeared, employees who left suddenly. I realized I wasn't just dealing with a rude man. I was dealing with someone who had built his entire life on secrets and lies. I reached out to an old friend, Jamie, who worked as a journalist. I told her what I'd found, and she agreed to help me look into Mr. Carter's businesses. We spent hours going through documents, piecing together a puzzle that had been hidden for years. We found evidence of tax evasion, fake charities, and even a whistleblower who'd tried to speak out but was silenced. It was all there, buried under layers of paperwork and fake smiles. I knew I had to be careful. Mr. Carter was powerful, and he had friends in high places. But I also knew I couldn't let him get away with what he'd done, to me, to his family, to everyone who trusted him. The hardest part was telling Ethan. I invited him over one night and showed him everything I'd found. At first, he didn't want to believe it. "That's my dad," he said, his voice shaking. "He's not perfect, but he's not a criminal." I looked him in the eyes. "Ethan, he hurt people. He's hurting you. And he tried to humiliate me just because I wasn't good enough for him." Ethan broke down. He told me stories from his childhood, how his father would threaten anyone who got in his way, how he'd forced Ethan to keep quiet about things he'd seen. It was betrayal on every level, not just to me but to his own family. I knew I couldn't do this alone, so I called Jamie, and together we came up with a plan. We would gather all the evidence, make sure it was airtight, and then go public. But not just with a news article. We wanted everyone to see the real Mr. Carter. We decided to confront him at his own charity gala, a night when all eyes would be on him. It was risky, but it was the only way to make sure the truth came out. Ethan agreed to help. He said he was tired of living in his father's shadow, tired of pretending everything was okay. We spent weeks preparing, collecting documents, recording interviews, making sure every detail was perfect. The night of the gala arrived. The Carter family was dressed to impress, smiling for the cameras, shaking hands with city officials. Mr. Carter gave a speech about honesty, integrity, and giving back to the community. I stood in the back, my heart pounding. Jamie was there too, ready to record everything. When Mr. Carter finished his speech, I stepped forward. I could feel everyone's eyes on me. "Excuse me, Mr. Carter," I said, my voice steady. "I have something to say." He looked surprised, then annoyed. "This isn't the time, Mia." But I didn't back down. I pulled out the folder of evidence and handed it to the event organizer. "I think everyone here deserves to know the truth about who you really are." The room went silent as the organizer read through the documents. People started whispering, looking at Mr. Carter, then at me. Jamie stepped forward and played a recording, an interview with the whistleblower describing everything Mr. Carter had done. Mr. Carter tried to laugh it off, but the evidence was overwhelming. The organizers called security. Reporters started asking questions. His family looked stunned. Ethan stood by my side, holding my hand. He looked at his father, and for the first time, he didn't look afraid. The news spread fast. By the next morning, Mr. Carter's face was all over the headlines, not as a hero, but as a fraud. Investigations were launched. His businesses were shut down. People he'd hurt finally got a chance to speak out. Ethan's family was shaken, but they started to heal. His mother apologized to me, saying she'd never realized how much control Mr. Carter had over their lives. As for me, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. I hadn't wanted to destroy a family, but I knew the truth had to come out. Looking back, I realized that night changed more than just my relationship with Ethan. It changed how I saw myself. I learned that standing up for yourself isn't always easy. Sometimes it means facing people who seem untouchable. Sometimes it means risking everything to do what's right. But I also learned that no one has the right to make you feel small. No one has the right to judge you for where you come from. Mr. Carter tried to embarrass me, to make me feel like I didn't belong. But in the end, it was his own actions that destroyed his image. If you ever find yourself in a situation like mine, remember this: you are stronger than you think. And sometimes the best revenge is simply telling the truth. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that even when people try to bring you down, you have the power to stand up and fight back. Justice doesn't always come easy, but it's worth it. And sometimes, the person who tries to embarrass you ends up exposing themselves. Stay strong, stay true to yourself, and never let anyone tell you that you don't belong.